It started with the shoes. That's what pulled the thread. I came home early that day. I had wrapped up my last client call around 3 and decided to beat the traffic for once. The Houston heat was still clinging to the air like a second skin, and all I could think about was a cold drink and maybe catching the Astros game in peace. I pulled into our driveway, noticing her car was already there, which was a little odd. Lauren normally worked later on Thursdays. She always said Thursdays were strategy reset days with her team, but I didn't think much of it, at least not yet. As soon as I opened the front door, though, something shifted in my gut. I've lived in this house for 8 years. I know what it smells like. I know what it feels like. But that day, that moment, it felt like someone had rewired my sense of home when I wasn't looking. Right there, by the entryway on the mat just inside the door, was a pair of men's dress shoes. Not just any shoes. Black Oxfords, polished to a mirror shine. And next to them, a tailored navy blazer hung neatly on the coat rack. Neither belonged to me. I stood there a second too long. Something inside me ran through every possible innocent explanation and came up empty. "Lauren," I called out. My voice echoed more than usual. No response. I toed off my shoes, keeping my eyes on the polished ones like they might vanish if I blinked. I walked into the living room slowly, scanning. The place was clean, too clean. Not like the usual, lived-in kind of clean. Like someone had just wiped down surfaces and lit a candle to hide something. Then I saw it. On the coffee table, 2 wine glasses. One with lipstick, one without. A small wooden board with cheese, olives, and dried figs. Lauren hates figs. Always said they reminded her of spoiled jelly. But there they were, neatly arranged next to an open bottle of Cab. I stepped closer. The wine was still breathing, still warm, recently poured. My stomach started to tighten. Not a sharp kind of panic, just that slow, creeping kind that starts behind your ribs and works its way down. Then I heard a door click shut, soft, not slammed. From the hallway, the bathroom. Before I could move toward it, Lauren appeared at the end of the hallway. She was wearing a silk robe I'd never seen before, dark burgundy, tied loosely at the waist. Her hair was damp, the kind of damp that suggested a shower, not a rinse. She stopped mid-step when she saw me, like a deer caught in headlights. "Oh, you're home early," she said, her voice shooting up half an octave too high. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, then at the wine glasses, then back to her. Her eyes tracked my gaze. I was just... Marissa stopped by. She brought her boyfriend. They had a layover, just passing through. I let them hang out here for a bit. She said it fast, like she'd rehearsed it or had said it already, maybe to herself in the mirror. I nodded slowly, my expression flat. "Marissa's boyfriend wears a 10, 1 or 2? She blinked. "What?" I motioned toward the shoes. "Those are a 10, 1 or 2 Oxford, Italian leather, look barely worn, not exactly airport shoes." She paused, just for a fraction of a second, then forced a small laugh. "I didn't ask his shoe size, babe. They were only here for like 30 minutes. He was on a call. Marissa just needed to freshen up. She's been traveling a lot, poor thing." She crossed the room and kissed me on the cheek, casually, like nothing was wrong. But I felt it, the way her lips barely touched my skin, the way her eyes didn't meet mine. I smelled her perfume, a heavier, muskier scent than her usual citrusy one, a scent I hadn't noticed before. She breezed past me into the kitchen, already pivoting. "Do you want me to warm up some leftovers? I made the lemon chicken last night, but we've got soup too if you're in the mood for something lighter. You've been looking tired lately." That's how Lauren handled things. Shift, pivot, redirect. When she didn't want to answer something, she'd bury it under logistics. I walked toward the bathroom while she clanged around in the kitchen. I pushed the door open. The steam still clung to the mirror. 2 towels hung over the shower rod, both damp. One had a black hair caught in the fold. I'm blonde. Lauren's a redhead. Back in the hallway, I paused at the laundry basket. Inside, a crumpled white shirt men's, large, with faint creases and a smell I didn't recognize. I didn't say anything. I just stood there letting the pieces fall into place in my head. When I came back to the kitchen, She was pouring wine into a third glass. My glass. She looked up at me with that too bright smile. Everything okay? Yeah, I said, just surprised to see you home. I thought Thursdays were your late days. She shrugged. Eric canceled the team sync, said we all needed a mental health afternoon, which honestly I appreciated. Eric, her boss, the same one she mentioned more and more lately. Always Eric said this. Eric liked that deck I made. Eric asked me to stay late and help prep for Dallas. I sat at the counter, eyes flicking toward her planner, half buried under junk mail. Something was sticking out black, glossy, a hotel key sleeve, the kind you get at boutique places downtown. I slid it out and turned it over. The Montrose Hotel, room 208, next to it a printed receipt for 2 entrees, wine and valet, time stamped from just an hour ago. She saw me looking, froze for a split second. Then without missing a beat, she said, "Oh, that's from when I helped Marissa book her room. She left it behind." I just nodded again, my face blank. She leaned in with a warm smile. "Do you want to eat now or later? I was thinking we could watch something tonight. Maybe that documentary you mentioned?" I looked at her like she was speaking another language, because that's what it felt like. 2 different realities layered over each other. Her words were soft, familiar, almost loving. But the world behind them? Foreign, twisted. She was still acting like this was normal. Like I hadn't just found hotel key cards and mystery shoes and 2 fresh glasses of wine. I played along, for now. "Documentary sounds good," I said, because in that moment I needed time, not answers. Not confrontation, just time to let it all sink in. Because the house was still and clean and beautifully staged, but I could feel it. A truth had just walked through my front door, barefoot and dripping water across the floor. And no matter how many details she layered on top of it, wine, leftovers, small talk, I wasn't going to unsee what I'd seen. Something was broken, and she knew I knew. But she wasn't ready to admit it. Not yet. That night, I barely slept. Lauren lay next to me in bed, breathing slow and steady like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just lied to my face 5 different times in the span of 15 minutes. Like I hadn't stared at 2 wine glasses, unfamiliar shoes, a hotel key, and still nodded along like a trained husband playing his part. I kept my eyes on the ceiling for hours, my thoughts scattered like puzzle pieces on a kitchen table. No edges, no image, just fragments. But the longer I stared into the dark, the more they started to connect. The blazer, the shoes, the wine, the towels, the silk robe. The truth had been hiding in plain sight, and I hadn't seen it. Or maybe I had, but I just didn't want to face it. And now that the dam had cracked, everything started flooding back. It wasn't just today. For the past few months, I'd felt something shifting, slowly, quietly, like a house settling deeper into the ground, until the doors stopped closing right. Lauren used to call me on her lunch breaks, every day, even if just for a few minutes. She'd talk about her coworkers, complain about bad coffee, sometimes just breathe on the line while scrolling her phone. It was our thing, our little anchor. But around March, those calls stopped. At first it was, "Sorry, meetings all day." Then Eric asked us to do silent work hours. Then just silence. I told myself it was temporary, a busy season, corporate stress, normal. Then came the girls' nights, first once a month, and then bi-weekly, then sometimes twice in a week. She never invited me, never even mentioned names, just vague lines like, "A few of the girls from yoga," or "a couple people from marketing." No photos, no tags, no shared stories when she got home, just silence and the smell of someone else's cologne clinging faintly to her coat. One time I joked and asked, "Is this girls' night or secret agent training?" She laughed too hard. "You'd be surprised. Lots of espionage involved in getting Susan to do tequila shots." Susan? Never met her. Her phone used to be an afterthought left on tables, flung on the bed, forgotten in the bathroom. Lately, it was always with her, always face down, with a new matte black privacy screen that made it impossible to read even if you stood behind her. I asked about it once. She said it was a client's policy for work devices. except it was her personal phone. I started to notice how she'd angle the screen away from me, even when she wasn't doing anything. Even when we were watching Netflix and she'd just be checking Pinterest. She never had notifications anymore, just blank screens, until she picked it up, unlocked it, and suddenly messages started rolling in. One night I said, "You get more texts after 10 p.m. than a teenage YouTuber." She just smirked. "That's because you're old and boring." I laughed, but I felt the chill in her words. She changed her perfume. I remember the first time I noticed. I was pulling her close one morning before work, and instead of the usual floral notes, I smelled something darker, smokier, expensive, foreign. I pulled back. "What's this one?" She looked away. "Oh, it's from a client gift bag, limited edition." She said it like it was nothing, but Lauren hated musky scents. They gave her headaches, or at least they used to. It was around that time I started noticing little things. Lingerie tags in the trash. From boutiques she'd never shopped at before. Not the kind she bought for comfort, the kind with imported lace and price tags with 3 digits. I never saw them in our bedroom, shopping bags stuffed under the bathroom sink, then gone the next day. Receipts from bistros in parts of the city we never went to. She'd mentioned trying new lunch spots for work, but these places weren't open during the day. One night, I opened our joint credit card account online. Just curiosity. I told myself I was being ridiculous, that I needed to see normal charges to calm down. But it wasn't normal. 112 at a rooftop wine bar in Midtown. 78 for dinner at a fondue place in Montrose. 43 at a hotel cafe at 11:47 p.m. They weren't frequent, maybe 2 or 3 a month, just spaced enough to pass unnoticed. But not anymore. The final straw. The moment I couldn't unsee came from her laptop. She'd left it open one morning while rushing to a workout class, just sitting there on the couch like a ticking clock. I wasn't trying to snoop, but curiosity is a slippery slope. I checked her browser tabs. Harmless at first. Online shopping, a Pinterest board called Reset Vibes. But one tab made my stomach flip. Google Maps, zoomed in on a cafe in West University. That didn't mean much until I remembered Eric, her boss, mentioning at a Christmas party that he lived near there. He joked about the parking being so bad, you needed a drone to find a spot. The street view was right in front of a coffee shop called Bluestone Roast. Lauren didn't drink coffee after 3 p.m. She hated being jittery, but the location history on her Chrome profile showed she'd searched it multiple times, and always in the evenings. I checked her calendar next. Sparse, but one event stood out. Consulting Bluestone, 7 p.m. It was color-coded in gray, private. I didn't touch anything else. I didn't need to. That night, I sat on the porch alone. The air was sticky and loud with cicadas. Lauren was out late again, team happy hour this time. I stared out at the dark, trying to picture her where she said she was, surrounded by coworkers, sipping cocktails, laughing about deadlines. But all I could see was her in a silk robe, with 2 glasses of wine and a man's shoes by the door. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the version of her I was seeing now didn't match the woman I married. It was like watching a familiar movie, only the actors had changed halfway through. And the worst part? She was good at it. Too good. From the outside, nothing had changed. We still went to brunch on Sundays, still posted birthday photos, still had matching Christmas pajamas in the drawer. Our friends still told us we were relationship goals. But they didn't see the cracks. They didn't feel what I felt when I kissed her cheek and she flinched slightly, like it caught her off guard, or the way she pulled away faster than she used to, or how she'd forget stories she told me the week before, because maybe she told them to someone else. This wasn't one lie. It was a mosaic, a wall of tiny half-truths and omissions stacked together so carefully I almost didn't notice until it was too late. But now, I saw it, and no amount of normalcy could cover it up again. I needed proof, real proof, not just vibes and Google Maps history, not just wine glasses and damp towels or shady receipts tucked under junk mail. I needed something indisputable, something that would silence the little voice in my head that kept saying, "What if you're wrong? What if there's still time to fix it?" Because if I was going to tear my life apart, I couldn't do it on a maybe. And that's how I found myself 3 weeks later in a rented tuxedo, holding a silver serving tray, slipping through the side entrance of a downtown hotel in Dallas, playing the part of a waiter at a corporate dinner I wasn't even supposed to know about. The whole setup was perfect. Lauren had been selected to attend a leadership development event hosted by her company's senior team. It was invite only. Spouses were encouraged to enjoy the city independently. Her words, not mine. It didn't raise red flags at first. She'd gone to things like this before. Networking weekends, quarterly off-sites. But when she got the invite this time, she was different, guarded, the kind of careful she usually reserved for delicate conversations with HR. And that's when I started digging. I waited until she left her phone charging in the kitchen, then checked her event email on her sync laptop. It was all their venue, time, guest list, itinerary. The name that jumped out? Eric, her boss. The same Eric who lived near the coffee shop in West U. The same Eric she mentioned in every other sentence for months. The one whose name she always said too casually, like it didn't matter. Well, he mattered now. The event was black tie, ballroom at the Crescent Hotel in Dallas, seated dinner, cocktails at 6, presentations at 8, dancing after 9. I called in a favor from a friend who worked in private security and got a borrowed uniform and a badge. He thought I was being dramatic, said I should just talk to her. I nodded, smiled, and lied through my teeth, because I already knew. Lauren left Thursday morning with a perfectly packed carry-on, dressed like she was flying first class on the cover of a magazine. I told her she looked great. She said, "Don't wait up." Then she kissed my cheek like I was her brother and walked out the door. I drove to Dallas 5 hours later, heart racing the entire time. Every mile felt like a countdown. Every green highway sign brought me closer to a truth I wasn't sure I wanted to see. But I couldn't turn back. Not anymore. The ballroom was huge. Warm lights, crisp linens, rows of people in tailored suits and evening gowns, clinking glasses and laughing too hard at middle management jokes. I moved quietly, invisible in my role, holding a tray, offering champagne, blending in. I scanned the crowd table by table, heart in my throat. And then I saw her. Lauren was sitting at a small table near the dance floor, her back straight, wine glass in hand. She was smiling, really smiling, the way she used to when we were still new. Sitting next to her was Eric, dark suit, no tie, hand resting casually on the small of her back like it belonged there. He leaned in and said something low. She laughed. I froze mid-step. He moved his hand from her back to her arm, from her arm to her knee, all subtle, all smooth. Like this wasn't the first time. She didn't pull away. I stood there like a statue, barely breathing, watching my wife share dessert with another man, watching her feed him a bite from her fork like they were sitting at home, not at a work event. Then it happened. He kissed her. Not a secretive, anxious kiss. Not something stolen or panicked. No. This was casual, confident, the kind of kiss that doesn't ask permission because it already knows the answer. My heart didn't break all at once. It cracked, quietly. And in that moment, any part of me that still hoped I was wrong just died. I moved like a machine after that. I pulled out my phone and took photos clear sheets of their table, the timestamp, the table number, her hand on his arm around her chair, their plates, their wine glasses, the hotel-issued printed dinner for two receipt folded neatly next to her clutch. No denials, no maybes, no you misunderstood. This was it. I didn't confront her, not yet. That wasn't the point of tonight. This wasn't about screaming in front of coworkers or dramatic exits. It wasn't about making a scene. It was about control. For once, I was the one holding the cards. Back at the hotel garage, I sat in my car with the engine off. Just sat, staring at the steering wheel, trying to process what I'd seen, what it meant. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I felt numb, like my whole body had been wrapped in cotton. Because even though I'd known, even though every instinct in my body had been screaming for weeks, seeing it, watching her kiss him, Watching her light up for him the way she used to for me, that made it real. This wasn't just cheating. This was a second life, and I hadn't even been invited to the audition. When I got home the next night, Lauren was already there, kitchen clean, jazz playing low from the Bluetooth speaker, candles lit like nothing had changed. She looked up from her phone and smiled. "Hey, babe, how was your night?" My night? I wanted to laugh or vomit. "Fine," I said. "Just tired." She crossed the room and kissed me like she hadn't spent the night before in someone else's arms. "I was thinking we should book that Napa trip," she said, walking back to the fridge. "Maybe October? Get away for a bit?" I nodded. "Yeah, let's look into it." Because I wasn't ready to tip my hand, not yet. She thought she was in control. But I had the photos. I had the receipts. I had the truth. And I was going to make sure she knew all of it when the time was right. Later that night, she curled up next to me in bed, head on my chest like it was routine. Like our entire marriage wasn't a stage play with me as the clueless, supporting character. "I missed you," she whispered. I didn't say anything. I just stared up at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster. And for the first time in our marriage, I didn't feel hurt, or angry, or betrayed. I felt done, not with love, but with her. You'd think after seeing your wife kiss another man, everything would explode. That the walls would come down, the arguments would ignite, and all the lies would catch fire in front of you. But that's not how it happened. What followed instead was silence. A strange, echoing silence that stretched across every room of the house like a low-hanging fog. Not the absence of words, but something heavier. The kind of silence that has weight, presence, personality, and somehow she didn't seem to hear it. The night after I got back from Dallas, Lauren was radiant. That's the only way I can describe it. She floated through the house in leggings and a long cardigan, like a woman returning from a spa retreat. She kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted Thai or Italian, and told me she'd missed sleeping in our bed. The audacity of it nearly choked me. I watched her flip through our stack of mail like she wasn't carrying a betrayal in her pocket. Like the woman who kissed her boss across a white linen table just 24 hours ago had never existed. Like Dallas had been a dream, and this was the real life. But it wasn't. This wasn't real. What I was seeing now was a performance, and I was the audience. For the next week, she doubled down on domesticity. She baked banana bread, cleaned out the guest room closet just to declutter, and even printed out travel brochures for Napa. She texted me midday again, sent heart emojis, forwarded me memes we would have laughed at 5 months ago. She was putting on a show, but her timing was off. Her reactions were a beat too fast. Her laughter came too easily. Her body moved around mine like she was hitting her marks, like a stage actor waiting for cues. And every time I looked at her, I saw two people. The one pouring my coffee, and the one whispering into Eric's ear under the glow of a ballroom chandelier. I didn't confront her, not because I was scared, but because I wasn't ready to waste that moment. You only get one shot at a reckoning, one chance to lay it all out and watch the house of cards fall. I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted her to feel what I had felt, not just the pain, but the precision of it. So I waited, and while I waited, I watched. Every word, every gesture, every lie rolled out like lines from a bad script I'd already read. I knew the ending. She just didn't know I had the manuscript in my pocket. One night we were watching a documentary, something about climbers scaling impossible cliffs, and she curled up beside me like old times, head on my shoulder, hand on my chest, and she whispered, "Do you think people like that are born brave, or do they just decide to be?" I didn't answer right away, because in that moment I realized something. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of losing her, not of being alone, not of starting over. I'd already lost her. The only thing left now was the reveal. But even without confrontation, things started to fracture. Her stories didn't line up. She'd tell me she was staying late for a strategy session, then post a selfie from the wine bar's bathroom mirror. Ladies' night. In the caption, like hashtags could erase context. She left her phone charging in the kitchen once screen lit up when I walked by. The preview read, Eric. Last night was magic. Let's do it again. Soon. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The proof I'd gathered in Dallas was already more than enough. I was just collecting context now, filling in the backstory. She started asking me questions again, ones I hadn't heard in months. You okay? You've been quiet lately. Are we good? She asked like someone testing the waters before jumping in, like she felt the temperature shift, but didn't know if it was her fault or the seasons changing. And I kept my voice even, my tone flat. Just tired. Work's been heavy. Yeah, we're good. I fed her the same kind of answers she gave me when this all started. Vague, smooth, empty. Let her taste her own medicine. The more she leaned into the fantasy of our marriage, the more disconnected I felt from it. We still did the routines, grocery runs, laundry, budget meetings, but it felt like I was play acting, like I was moving through a diorama of my own life. And she still touched me, still kissed me goodnight, still smiled like nothing had changed. And maybe that's what shook me most, how easily she wore the mask, how naturally she slipped back into the role of loving wife, even while juggling a secret life behind the curtain. She wasn't flinching anymore. She was thriving in the lie. One morning, she left her tablet on the kitchen counter. I wasn't looking for anything, but the tab was open to an article titled, How to Break Off an Affair Without Ruining Everything. I stared at it for a long time, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed something I hadn't been able to name. She was planning her exit from him, not for me, but to protect herself. She wasn't ending it out of guilt. She was trying to manage fallout, and it made everything so much worse. That night over dinner, she brought up the idea of going to couples therapy, totally out of the blue. I was halfway through a bite of salmon when she said it. I think we should go, just to reconnect, before things get too far off course. Too far off course? We were already shipwrecked on separate islands. I looked at her, studying the way she held her fork like it was a prop, the way her eyes scanned mine for a reaction. You think something's wrong? I asked. She shrugged, playing casual. Not wrong, just off. I don't want us to lose what we have. I nodded. Sure, book it. And just like that, she smiled relieved, like she'd bought herself more time. But all she'd done was confirm one thing. She knew it was crumbling. She just didn't know I was already standing outside the ruins. The next day, she left for work early. I stood in the doorway after she pulled out of the driveway and looked around our house. The framed wedding photo in the hallway, the engraved wine glasses from our 5th anniversary, the little magnet on the fridge from that trip to Asheville. Home is wherever I'm with you. It all felt hollow now, not because the memories weren't real, but because she wasn't real anymore. She had split into two people, one who made pancakes on Sunday, and one who told another man he made her feel alive again. And me? I wasn't the husband anymore. Not really. I was the audience, the archivist, the man holding the final scene in his hands. And she had no idea the curtain was already rising. There's something strange that happens when your heart breaks quietly. At first, it feels like you're drowning, like all the air's been socked out of your life and replaced with static. But after a while, after enough lies, enough careful silences and stage smiles, the pain doesn't just fade, it hardens. And what's left behind is cold, focused, almost surgical. That's where I was. I didn't want answers anymore. I wanted evidence. Not for closure, not even for confrontation. I wanted clarity. I wanted the truth organized in black and white. No more guesswork, no more emotional fog. So I started keeping track, not in some messy notebook or haphazard notes app. No, this was going to be clean, precise, quiet. If Lauren was going to run 2 lives, I was going to document both. It started with the receipts. There were more than I remembered. Boutique hotels, restaurant charges after 10 p.m., multiple charges at the same gas station on the edge of town where Eric lived. And the names on the statement started to repeat. The Camden, the Muse, Riva Wine Bar, Chroma Cafe. Places we'd never been to together. Places she never mentioned by name, only referred to vaguely, like, We were just grabbing something small after the pitch meeting. I matched each charge to a date, then cross-referenced it with her work calendar, her personal iCloud events, and even texts she sent me that day. It painted a pattern, a rhythm. Thursday nights, occasional Fridays, sometimes Tuesdays when she claimed to be mentoring the new hire after hours. I saved each one PDF copies, time-stamped, highlighted. Next came the rideshare logs. She had installed a separate Uber account on her work phone. I knew because one day she handed it to me while driving, told me to skip the song. The app was still open in the background. Later that night, I dug through it. Her ride history was a goldmine. Dozens of short trips in areas she never mentioned. A couple rides late at night to and from the Camden Hotel. Drop-offs in residential neighborhoods, once even a late-night pickup from a park near Eric's address. A park with no reason for her to be there at 11:15 p.m. on a Tuesday. I took screenshots of everything, synced them to a private drive, date, time, destination, duration. Mapped out, it all looked like choreography, a silent dance I hadn't been invited to watch until now. I went back to that cafe, the one in West U near Eric's house. I didn't go inside. I just sat across the street in my car, windows up, eyes scanning. At 6:58 p.m., Lauren arrived, not in her work clothes, in a soft sweater and jeans she usually reserved for casual Sundays. She wore sunglasses even though the sun was setting. Eric pulled up 5 minutes later, got out of his car and didn't even look around. Just walked straight to her, kissed her on the cheek, and they went inside. Like it was routine, like it had happened dozens of times before. I stayed parked until they came out. At 8:09, they stood by her car for a few minutes, talking, smiling. He touched her chin at one point, then he left. She sat in her car for another 5 minutes before driving off. I filmed the whole thing, no sound, just time-stamped footage, a quiet digital confession. The lake retreat came next. Lauren had mentioned it briefly, casually, like it didn't matter. We're doing a team-building weekend at the lake house, just strategy stuff and bonding exercises. I'll be back Sunday night. She said it over coffee, flipping through her planner like she was reading from a grocery list. I asked her which team. She hesitated. Just our senior leads. Eric's organizing it. He wants us aligned going into Q4. I nodded. That sounds nice. She smiled, kissed my cheek. It'll be boring, I promise. I made my move that Saturday, drove out early, took a back route around the lake, parked just off the road with a clear view of the guest cabins. Binoculars, long lens camera, engine off. I waited for 5 hours. Finally, just before sunset, I saw them. Lauren and Eric, walking slowly down the gravel path toward the second cabin. No other coworkers around, no sign of team building, just them hand in hand, like a couple on vacation. She was laughing, carefree, hair up in a bun, dressed for comfort, not business. I took a dozen photos, time-stamped, dated, clear line of sight. They entered the cabin together, lights on 15 minutes later. They didn't come out again that night. By this point, I had the timeline. I had the visuals, the records, the receipts. But something still felt missing. I needed audio. Not for the courts, not even for her, for me. I needed to hear the truth from her own mouth, not through guesses or assumptions, but through her words. So I bought a slim voice recorder, one of those cheap, high-memory ones you can tape under a table or wedge into a bookshelf. I placed it under the console table in our living room, and I waited. It didn't take long. The third night, just after midnight, I heard it. Her voice, low, whispering, soft like velvet and sharp like broken glass. She was on the phone. I told him I'd be home early. Yeah, I know, I miss you too. I hate lying, but I can't just walk away. Not yet. No, he doesn't suspect anything. He's been distant. I think he's tired. Honestly, I feel bad. But when I'm with you, silence for a beat, then a laugh. I know. You make me feel alive. I haven't felt like this in years. That was it. That was the line. The one that lodged in my chest and refused to come out. I didn't listen to the rest. I didn't need to. I transferred the file, backed it up twice and labeled it. Living room, September 2nd, 12:11 a.m. It joined the folder with the others. Photos, PDFs, logs, clips, voice. What I had now wasn't suspicion. It wasn't conjecture. It was a dossier. A record of betrayal, mapped out with precision, like a surgeon tracing a scalpel's path before the first cut. And it kept growing. I took the next step quietly, met with a lawyer downtown, someone discreet, referred by a friend who went through something similar and came out clean on the other side. We sat in his office, the sound of traffic humming outside the window, and I laid it all out. Didn't flinch, didn't sugarcoat. He listened, took notes, flipped through the photos and logs and screen captures. When I was done, he looked up at me and said, "You've built the cleanest case I've ever seen." "Good," I said, because that's what this was now. Not just a case, a record, a reckoning, a roadmap out of the life I no longer recognized. I planted a voice recorder in the living room and captured late-night calls, her whispering promises to end it soon, telling Eric she felt alive with him. Meanwhile, I met with a lawyer, opened a private bank account, sold my motorcycle for cash, and compiled every piece of evidence, photos, receipts, audio, location logs into airtight folders. The moment was coming. I wasn't just preparing to leave. I was preparing to walk away without looking back. When the dossier was complete, I printed it, labeled it, and laid it on the kitchen table. Lauren came home smiling until she saw it. She cycled through denial, excuses, then tears. But the truth was undeniable. I stayed calm. No yelling, no begging, just quiet finality. I closed the joint accounts, served the papers, and walked out the door. Not from love, from illusion, and I didn't look back.